Joining us now is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, the author of Deception, the Great COVID Cover-Up. While we're on the topic of government officials who think they can conceal the truth, enter Anthony Fauci. More than 100 times during closed-door testimony yesterday, he told lawmakers that he did not recall important information and conversations relevant to the origins of COVID-19 and the U.S. pandemic response that he presided over. Senator Paul.
Who does that remind you of? Kind of reminds you of Bill Clinton a little bit. I don't recall. And then he gets into the definition. What is gain of function is. What is the definition of gain of function? Everything's parsing words when he can remember. And most of the time, if it's an important question, he can't remember. But he did admit that, you know what? He approved all of the research, but he didn't read or review any of it. And he doesn't know how or what process there is for having oversight for foreign research, like the research that went on in Wuhan. It's amazing.
So we are seeing a generation that is suffering. You hear from teachers, you hear from employers who've really been, put behind the eight ball because of that closures of schools. We have excess deaths, perhaps related to some of the treatments and so forth. And he's like, can't remember the guy who was the highest paid official for how many years in Washington?
But if he was here, he would tell you that he was for closing the schools before he was against closing the schools, before he was for it again and then against it. So many things, but the one thing that's consistent about Anthony Fauci is what he says in private is largely true. What he says in public is largely a lie. When asked about the masks by a fellow co-worker, Sylvia Burwell, he told her the truth. He said the masks don't work because the pores are bigger than the virus.
Their own study revealed that about the influenza virus.
But then in public, he wears 3 masks. In private, he tells his colleagues you don't really need to wear one. It's the same with immunity. It's the same with the vaccines. And it's really the same with gain of function. In private, he said, yes, we're suspicious that the virus was manipulated, looks manipulated, and we know they're doing gain of function in Wuhan. He describes it. That's in a private email. In public, to this day, he still denies that they funded any gain of function research in Wuhan. It's all an entire lie.
That wouldn't be a big scandal or anything, wouldn't it? Would it be like we ended up putting money to EcoHealth Alliance that gave money to Wuhan that ultimately spun off that virus
and then
that ended up killing 9 million people?
1 million people died here, 9 to 20 million people worldwide, and not one Democrat has stepped forward. On the committee, in the hearings where Fauci is testifying, the Democrats are still defending him and saying nothing to see here, it wasn't gain of function. But it's all sort of parsing of words. The viruses they were creating in the lab were more infectious. They became more infectious and more deadly.